3 days. That was all the time I had owned the weathered boathouse anchored on the north edge of Lake Harmony when the Armada arrived. 5 black SUVs rolled down the gravel lane like a funeral procession, tires crunching loud enough to scatter the herons. A woman in a coral blazer stepped out first, hair lacquered against the breeze, clutching a stack of papers the way a preacher holds a Bible. Evelyn Carter, president of the Lake Harmony Property Owners Association. Behind her came her daughter, Margaret, briefcase in hand, heels sinking into the soft earth like accusations. "Move this eyesore in 24 hours, Evelyn announced, voice sharp enough to cut glass. "Or we will do it for you and send the bill." I set my paintbrush on the rail. The boathouse, built in 1952, had been my escape from a collapsed marriage and a stalled writing career. I had bought it sight unseen for 30 grand at an estate auction, figuring the worst it could be was quiet. Turns out the worst was Evelyn. I told her I had city permits, a clear title, and no intention of floating my new home anywhere. She laughed, a sound like ice cracking, and handed me the violation notice. 17 architectural infractions, $500 a day in fines, and a removal crew already on standby. Margaret recited case law the way other people quote scripture. They had never lost. 47 wins, 0 defeats. That night the water stopped running. The next morning a tow truck idled at my dock, diesel fumes drifting across the mist. A drone buzzed overhead every 30 minutes, loudspeaker blaring. "Vacate the premises." Neighbors gathered on their manicured lawns, phones raised, filming the spectacle like it was reality television. I found the first clue in a cedar box wedged behind a loose floorboard, a black and white photograph of the lake in 1950, empty except for the boathouse, and a surveyor's card for Harold Jenkins, established 1946. On the back, in faded ink, "He knows the truth." Harold was 90 now, living on the far side of town in a narrow Victorian with maps papering every wall. He greeted me at the door as if he had been waiting decades. "Your boathouse isn't just a dwelling," he said, spreading yellowed documents across his desk. "It is the anchor to 47 acres of water and lake bed, deeded in fee simple in 1952 to Edward Grayson. The rights run with the structure. Whoever owns the boathouse owns the lake." I stared at the original deed, then at the tax receipts showing 70 years of payments on the water itself. Edward had died 6 months earlier. His grandchildren had sold me the place for cash, eager to wash their hands of it. They never mentioned the lake. Evelyn knew. Harold produced a USB drive Edward had left with him. Recordings of Evelyn in 2003 laughing about waiting out the old man. Emails directing funds from lake access fees into a shell company. Spreadsheets totaling $6 million. I had 24 hours to turn the tide or lose everything. The emergency association meeting was held in the community center, 500 residents packed shoulder to shoulder. Evelyn stood on the dais beneath a banner reading "Preserving Our Shared Legacy." She was mid-sentence when I walked in carrying Edward's cedar box. "Security," she snapped. Before anyone moved, Harold Jenkins shuffled forward, cane tapping the floor like a gavel. "Let the man speak." Some of us remember when this lake belonged to one family and nobody complained. I connected my laptop to the projector. The first slide was the 1952 deed. The second was Evelyn on video. "We will deal with Grayson later. He will not last long." The room erupted. Phones rose like periscopes. Someone shouted, "That is my dock fee." Another demanded, "Where is my money?" Margaret tried to object, citing adverse possession, but Harold produced the county ledger proving the lake had never been common area. A former board member, Leonard Brooks, stood up next. Evelyn had ruined him 5 years earlier for asking the same questions. He played a recording of her threatening his daughter's college fund. The vote to dissolve the association took 4 minutes, 498 to 2. FBI agents entered through the side doors. Evelyn's ankle monitor, removed hours earlier and replaced with a fake, glinted under the fluorescent lights. Wire fraud, racketeering, destruction of public records. The charges rolled off the agent's tongue like a grocery list. Evelyn lunged for the exit and slipped on her own heels. No one helped her up. 3 days later, her attorneys countersued, claiming the 1952 deed lacked spousal consent from Edward's wife, Clara. The judge, a golfing buddy, issued an injunction freezing my access to the lake pending review. Neighbors who had cheered me on now painted fraud on my boathouse in dripping red letters. I sat in the dark, water and power cut again, when a soft knock sounded. An elderly woman stood on the dock, envelope in hand. "I am Clara Grayson," she said. "And this is the 1953 deed, re-executed after our vow renewal. My signature is right here, notarized and filed." The second emergency meeting was bedlam before it began. Clara took the microphone. "Evelyn removed the 1953 copy from the county archives 20 years ago. Here is the circulation log with her signature." Leonard Brooks played fresh recordings of Evelyn offering bribes. The maintenance supervisor handed over ledgers showing every diverted dollar. The new vote was unanimous. The association was dead. Evelyn received 8 years. Margaret took 3 and permanent disbarment. Every dock, ramp, and buoy built without permission became my property by law. I gave the community 30 days to remove them or pay 20 years of trespass rent, $1 million. 6 months later, I watched from my restored deck as the last illegal pier was winched away. Evelyn, in an orange vest, picked up trash along the shore under supervision. I raised my coffee in salute. "Beautiful morning," I called. She glared but kept working. A modest trust now manages the lake. Annual fee, $1, symbolic. Maintenance is voluntary, and the water is open to every resident. Kids fish off the public docks without permits. The herons have returned. I never meant to own a lake. I only wanted a quiet place to paint. But when someone steals from an entire community, sometimes the only decent thing to do is stand in their way. What do you think? When everyday people face down bullies with power, is it justice or just another kind of takeover? Drop your thoughts below. Have you ever seen an HOA go too far? Tell me your story.